Dear Oakland Unified Community, we are still early in the 25-26 school year, but there is significant budget news to share. This is the time of year when the district closes the books on last year's budget. The closing of the books for last year sets the beginning for this year's budget. While we must always approve the new year's budget in June, we don't actually know its true beginning balances until the final receipts and revenues for the previous year can be reconciled over the summer. These unaudited actuals or year-end close are presented each year in early September. The good news is our budget projections are getting more precise. The bad news is they continue to tell a story of the district moving in the wrong financial direction.
Sheila Haynes, Asada Olabala, and John Jones III. I do see Sheila Haynes online currently and can allow them to speak. How much time would you like to allot for public comment?
Okay, let's take Ms. Haynes first, and 2 minutes, please.
All right, one moment. Sheila Haynes, if you
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
yes.
Hi. Um, I actually just signed up for this section because of what happened last week. I just wanted to make sure that I could be heard, but I will wait until later on, until the meeting to speak on other items. But I just think it's important that you guys reevaluate your processes and allowing people to speak, not having them wait until the very end. So that's why I signed up for this section. I hope that you guys can hopefully make changes to that because it's not looking good for the community to have to wait until 10 p.m. or later to have their concerns addressed. I'll wait till my name is called for the next part of the meeting, and thank you for the time you gave me.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
John Jones III for the record. Good afternoon. First of all, I want to say happy Wednesday. Hope all is well with you and your loved ones. I want to thank the board president for your attendance at Garfield back to school night. My youngest son is a fifth grader there. And as you go into closed session, and even beyond closed session, just for the remainder of this school year and beyond, I have two thoughts I wish to share with you all. First of all, I think it's important for all of us to find ways to where we can ensure that our children are receiving the education that they need. I know, board president, as you heard, when they talked about the results of these assessments, that at Garfield, only 10 students are at or above grade level. Just as a parent, that tore my heart up. And I don't want to get into a place of blame. It's not about that. But I want to ask us how we can find ways to be creative and to collaboratively address these issues because they're real. And the second issue also related to the vacancy with students. And we know a lot of that to a large degree is due to the real fears related to ICE and deportation, right? But I want to say a second thing from me, my personal wish list for all of you. I don't think people really understand how difficult of the job you all have to do. Me personally, I believe you all should be on salary. I think the scope of work that you have demands that you have to have the compensation that's going to give you the time to truly focus on all these issues because you're not dealing with a little budget either. I don't know how people will feel about that. That's just my personal wish list for you all because I really think that you are tasked to do so much, a tremendous amount of work. But let's be honest, we all have to pay bills here, right? And if you don't have the time because you're not being truly compensated, then we as a community are not doing our due diligence in making sure you all have what you need. So thank you so very much, and I'm looking forward to a great year. Let's find ways to work together. So thank you. This is my way of saluting you all. Thank you.
I don't know who has the responsibility of making sure we don't get sued, but somebody needs to do that. Give you some examples. McClymonds has moved the entrance to the building where there is no ADA ramp. So at this point, we do not have accessibility for the disabled at the school. Who's dealing with that? Over at Bunch, I went over to Bunch. It is the most blighted piece of property, but you have signs up that says danger asbestos. It may cause cancer, danger to the lungs. Then you have another sign that says site contains PCB. Report any visible dust leaving the area to marry somebody. And right across the street is the tennis court and the skateboard facility that if there's any dust, we have young people being exposed to it. Lawsuit, possibly. We also had a game at McClymonds on Friday. It was embarrassing. Our scoreboard broke down. We had people there to climb the ladder. You must have knew it was going to break down because the maintenance people were there. And when they so-called fix it, they didn't completely fix it. But you know who was at the game on the other team? Carl Shanahan. What is his name? Brian Greasy, my son, who I told him to go tell him because he played in the NFL. What would have been the circumstances if somebody got hurt on that field? Y'all patched the field, but that field is not playable. What kind of lawsuit could we have potentially had if the coach of the 49ers' son had gotten hurt? He's on the junior varsity, and Brian Greasy's son is on the senior varsity. Y'all got to do something. We got some lawsuits, and y'all not paying attention. McClymonds, a game with the girls with a boom box because we didn't have a PA system to do their routines.
Go ahead, Director Patterson.
No modifications, but I would just like to apologize to the community that wasn't able to comment at last time's board meeting. We've been making some improvements to our audio, and so sometimes those issues collide with Zoom. And so we have been doing all our due diligence to update our systems. We would love to ask folks that are on Zoom to update theirs so that we can be as compatible as possible. But I want to thank folks that reached out to us and appreciate them for continuing to come to our board meetings.
Evening, Superintendent Sadler and board directors and student directors. My name is Meg Roberta Williams, and I'm a caregiver of a student in Montclair's extensive needs classroom who is non-speaking. As you noted, Superintendent Sadler, it's the 20th day of school, and my child and other classmates have collectively missed 10 of those days due to safety issues, as we started the school year with no permanent teacher, no qualified teacher in our classroom. As of today, we are really grateful to share that a teacher has been recruited by our new principal, Dr. Webster, and we thank her for her leadership in face of inheriting a historical opening. Last year, families were told for months that a teacher was onboarding, but the teacher never arrived. Instead, a paraeducator was promoted into the role without necessary training or credentialing, and she's no longer the teacher this year. This year began the same way. We did not know. We arrived Monday for our first day of kindergarten, not knowing, and families were left without a clear timeline, and many teams were unable to communicate effectively what was the holdup for our teacher. And in meeting with multiple people today, we were told that the talent portal is concerning and doesn't share much information. However, meanwhile, students' IEP services are not being fully met, which is a denial of FAPE. When families raise these concerns, myself specifically with district leadership, I was told by the director of elementary SPED, Michaela Reinstein, that I was welcome to seek legal remedies. But families are not looking for lawsuits. We are looking for safety and stability and qualified teachers in the classroom. And legal action can take months or years, and our child's needs are immediate. I want to thank Directors Lotta and Hutchinson for visiting and supporting families this week. President Brohard, you were also contacted, and your lack of response is noted and concerning, especially given your actions to destabilize and remove a superintendent while sharing consistently that you have a SPED background. We believe every ESN classroom deserves this type of attention, especially for our non-speaking students, and we urge all board members with the superintendent to go visit those classrooms, especially for students who cannot verbalize what is happening in there. We also ask that you urge the executive director and directors of elementary SPED to partner with families and not deflect responsibility. Thank you.
Next speaker is Sheila Haynes. Hello, Sheila Haynes. Are you speaking? Just one moment to see if we can connect you in the room. Can you continue to speak as we try to locate you so you can be heard in the room?
Now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Since we're on the superintendent section, I just want to honor the superintendent on her role in taking over the functions of the district. I value Dr. Sadler, Superintendent Sadler, so much. She always made me feel comforted that my son was in good hands at his last in-person school. And I just urge the board majority who voted to silence me last week to adopt true and fairness with the compassion that the superintendent possesses. Although I did hear an apology about technical difficulties, I did not hear a direct apology from you that voted to silence the voice of the disability community. And the fact that non-agenda items for public speaking has now been pushed to the end, I mean, that's not really valuing and respecting the community. I'm happy I had the chance to at least speak on the superintendent. And as building restorations and program centers are being implemented, it's important that the board also adopt fair and equal practices, because our children and their voices and the community in which they live in, it must be valued and respected. Otherwise, you're not really standing for true and fairness for everyone. So I just want to thank Dr. Superintendent Sadler, and I ask the board to follow fair practices. Thank you.
Ms. Harris?
Thank you, per usual, for the report. I have just a few questions, not necessarily looking for answers today, but just curiosities that came up for me after hearing the enrollment presentation. I became thank you, per usual, for the report. I have just a few questions, not necessarily looking for answers today, but just curiosities that came up for me after hearing the enrollment presentation, I became curious about what the relationship is between the enrollment changes and then the staff allocations needed and the site budgets, and whether there is any direct sort of like impact in real time. And then after the enrollment period, how much growth or decline sort of can we expect over the course of this year in enrollment? And I haven't seen sort of like the prior year enrollment pattern, so perhaps I can find it there. And then I know that adult ed isn't listed on that chart, and wondering if that, undergoes a different enrollment process, or, sort of why that's not on the chart.
Any other board comments? I did have a question about home and health care, or home and health. Aren't those students counted at a home school? I wasn't sure, so I wasn't sure how they counted their enrollment when he mentioned that there was some other, so how do we count home and health? Director Williams.
Thank you.
Director Hollis.
Yes, Madam President, we have, say, about 15 speakers. May I call all the names who have signed up to speak on public comment? If I may, I do see Sheila Haynes' name for Zoom. May I call them to speak?
Yes, you may, sorry.
Allow Sheila Haynes to speak.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, thank you. So I saw on the agenda the various programs that you're implementing with the music programs, and I just hope that the board is being financially responsible in terms of the programming. And although this is a small step, we're still hoping that there will be district-wide music and arts education for our children. But I was happy to see on different items that you guys are in the process of doing this. But I also wanted to just say that having public comment on non-agenda items at this time, at this point in the meeting, it really makes it hard for people to engage, even if online. It's hard to participate at this time. So I'm hoping that you guys will reconsider the order of non-agenda public speaking times and allow it to be earlier in the meeting. I said most of all I wanted to say earlier, so thank you for this time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is T, new business, and I believe this is Ms. Grant Dawson. T1 is the GAN limit. Is there a motion to adopt the GAN limit?
Yes, I move the adoption, the motion to adopt T1, T dot dash 1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Grant Dawson.
Good evening, Governing Board. There really is no presentation on the GAN limit. As you have read, and I know you all read all of the budget items, there'll be a test at the end of the presentation. This is a 1979 law, and as you all know, laws change slowly when it comes to finance and appropriations. And so ultimately, all this is saying is this GAN limit was set to establish some controls over spending in the state of California as it relates to economic growth, population, and allocations, which included school districts. And so ultimately, each year, as we either spend more or receive additional allocations, the calculation will adjust our GAN limit. And so this is a dated but required formality for us to do at the end of each fiscal year. So ultimately, we are recommending that we increase our GAN limit for next year, and the amounts are listed on the agenda item. For next year. But again, a lot of that was contingent upon what this year looks like. This just splits out the difference, so you can see just summarily the difference between the 45-day and the unaudited actuals. There is a full report comparison in the back of your packet for you too, where you can see all of the line items of where the changes were made. And so you see that we dropped from 58.4 million to 55.8 million. And some of that was, if you look in revenues, that drop in ADA, which therefore caused our loss of revenue. So we can celebrate the growth, but we have to also really work on the strategies to maintain those students so that we can continue to see that matriculation grow. This gives you a really nice chart of the breakdown of the multiple resources that make up the local control funding formula. And the amounts. There's a whole lot of long language behind that, but I think it really gives you a good framework for how this is built. You know, your base grant being built on average daily attendance. It has your unduplicated amount, which drives your concentration grant, and then any add-ons. So for instance, when there's a question about transportation, for instance, so you see home to school transportation is one of 4 add-ons. There's an amount that we receive for transportation that for years was the exact same as that it was in 2012-13. It just recently increased. Where did the difference come from? The base. So the base was supplementing any transportation growth where there's no additional revenue coming in for that. And so with that being said, that helps the base a bit, but it's still not as much as what, you know, the actual costs are. So this is a structure of how this works. And then lastly, this just gives you a good chart with the ADA and the unduplicated count. So back to you having that information very close at hand for not only how we ended the year, but how we're moving forward. These are what these slides are for, to help you with your discussions with your constituents about the district and its profile. So now that we've completed the unaudited actuals, we will be submitting this to the Alameda County Office of Education. Again, all of our financial reports, as you know, are reviewed by multiple groups of people. So there's an approval process that happens each year. And so that will be done next. It will be audited. So again, our work is always reviewed and always audited and always summarily we receive information back not only from the county, but if there's audit findings based on the review of any findings we have, also from the state. So that fluidity of conversation about the districts, its finances, its projections, and any concerns, right, is a two-way conversation that happens between the district and its overseeing bodies. Lastly, we'll be back again October 8th to work with the board on the strategies for solvencies. And then we'll be back at first interim as well, in addition to a few other things. There will be I'm sure we'll be working closer to see what October 8th, will look like and any other additional comments. But again, we just noted that those are a lot of our next steps between now and the end of the year. So with that being said, I will yield the floor back to President Burhart. And is she okay? Okay, good.
Thank you, Ms. Grant Dawson. Are there any public comments?
Yes, Madam President, we have three. Sada Olagbala. All public commenters' names have been called.
Thank you. Take one round of comments, and then if we need a second round, I'm just going to start with Director Hutchinson.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Grant Dawson. We are very lucky to have you. And you've been sounding this alarm for at least a year, a little bit longer than that. And it's actually, if people have listened closely, it's been a more and more serious alarm as we've gone along. I think, if I remember right, in June at budget adoption, you said the flashing red light is now solidly red or something to that effect. It's shocking that we're in this situation, I do have to say. And to hear that now with the closing of the books, we're projected to be below even the state required 2% in our reserve, which means when it was warned, when you warned everyone, and some of us on the board warned everyone, that at budget adoption, approving a budget with only $300,000 above the reserve was not adequate, we've blown through getting close to half of that already. When I hear this, it means it is essential that we address this year's budget and we look to make cuts in spending this year, otherwise we're going to be in real trouble. And the way this works is the longer we take to make these decisions, the less of the budget that we have left to cut from, which means it gets more and more serious. The fact that here we are, 4 weeks before October 8th, and there's been no board discussions or actions on any solution plans, I think is unacceptable. And I'm shocked that we're in this situation. Some of the areas where the real overspending comes from is the amount that we spend outside and above of contracts that we have with our labor partners, the way we staff above contractual levels. And that has been, staffing above contractual levels. And these are things that we tried to address in the last couple of years in our budget adjustment packages, but unfortunately there just hasn't been a willingness to do that from the board. And now we're in an even tougher situation because our multi-year fiscal sustainability plan, last year we took 6 months to go through a budget adjustment process. Now this board has 4 weeks. And again, I've seen no action. And I don't want to talk about some of the emails I've seen, which are actually offensive at this point. But here we are at a board meeting where this was agendized late in the night, so there's not even anyone here to engage or participate. It's a complete failure. Our number one responsibility as a board is fiduciary responsibility. And for the community, everyone needs to understand the unaudited actuals, also referred to as the closing of the books, are our official numbers for the 24-25 school year. So now we know what our official budget numbers were, and this paints a dire picture going forward, especially with a board that's been incapable and unwilling to do the real work. Again, thank you, Ms. Grant Dawson. We are lucky to have you. And I don't want anyone to any place to think that any of this crisis reflects on you, because you've tried to save us from ourselves over and over and over again. Thank you.
Thank you, President Brohard. Also, Ms. Grant Dawson, I too sing your praises because I think you've done a great job in terms of sounding the alarm for us. But I have to be honest, I hearken back to the onion and peeling the onion, because I think perhaps we're getting, right now, we've peeled things back. Now we're going to go to the core and have to peel things off. And I talked about a proverbial cry that we might have as a result of it. But then whatever the case might be, that's the case. But I do want to highlight something that I really appreciate in your report. And excuse me, I concur with one of the public comments that was made, in terms of the number of numbers, the quantity of numbers that are there. I think it's on slide 20. I think it's slide 20. It's the visual, the new visual that was put there. I think it's really great, and I think my community is going to really enjoy seeing that visual, yeah, that one, but seeing that visual because they'll see how things actually go together in order to for us to make our budget or to create a budget, the types of things that are there. Just understanding that you have this LCFF money that comes in, and that's our base. You have these other things that come in, and so they'll see, I think, and then get a better grasp of what all of those numbers are, because I think sometimes the numbers kind of confuse some people. But but they're necessary to have because we have to have the numbers to see what we're dealing with. But I think that graphic is going to really help. So I can't say enough. Thank you for all that you have done. Thank you for what you're still doing to help us out and to help us see and I hate to spend it negatively, but the dire need to make a decision. So thank you very kindly.
Yeah, I just wanted to take my time to read an email from the leadership of the Community Advisory Committee regarding the technical difficulties from our last meeting. So it reads, Dear Board Directors, as chairs of the Community Advisory Committee for Special Education, we've been hearing concerns from one of our members about the accessibility of public comments at school board meetings. We want to highlight that remote attendance and remote comment at public meetings are essential to members of the disability community. This type of access is also that we ask that you acknowledge in public that the technical difficulties of the last board meeting, combined with the greater influence of those who attend meetings in person, caused harm to individuals who can only attend and participate remotely. While we were neither present at the meeting nor aware of all the dynamics, we understood enough about what occurred to ask you for some public acknowledgement of harm at this time. We also welcome any steps that could prevent harm in the future. We offer our partnership in crafting solutions. Thanks for all you are doing as board directors to help the OUSD community navigate and confront these extremely troubling times. We respect your commitment to our district, to the educational rights of disabled students, and to our school district as a whole. We are your partners in defending public education for all children and youth. Sincerely, Coriander Melius, CAC co-chair, JD Woloshin, CAC co-chair, Latifa Ali, CAC Vice Chair. Thank you.
With that, we will adjourn the meeting.
Our children, our future's only chance of breaking the vicious cycle of destruction, is by recommitting to self-worth, value, and respect, and for self and each other. To be in the most loving space through positive music and the arts and language for our youths. Change.org, save our future now. Follow us on Facebook at Tower of Love Foundation and on YouTube at Tower of Love Foundation 3168.